Hello, and welcome into another episode of Mystery in the Ozarks, the book that I'm writing and reading to you as I write it here on YouTube. A lot's happened, and it's been a while since we've had a new episode. I want to update everybody out there real quick. I have finished the story. Every episode will be out hopefully this week, starting with this one, and we have, I think, 3 more after this. This is episode 11, and we're going to do a little bit of an update here. So if you haven't seen any of this yet, you haven't watched any of this yet, please go back to episode 1 and listen through, because I'm going to give some spoilers here just to get some updates to make sure we all remember where we're at, because it's been a while since I posted an episode. All right, so if you have not read anything, leave. Are you gone? All right. Oh, and really quick, today's video has a sponsor. It's bookboomalive.com. They handle all sorts of editing, book coaching, writing coaching, anything you can think of to do with the writing or author industry. They'll help you out. Go check them out. It's bookboomalive.com. And if you have any questions at all, feel free to send me a message. I'll help you out. Okay, so to update you guys, remember we're following the treasure hunters, Will, Carol, and Jake, and their grandfather has passed away and left them with a compass, a cipher, and a notebook. Throughout that process, they went up to Mulberry Mountain where they thought the treasure was at. They found out that that's where Jesse James and a former partner of Jesse James may have spent some time. They head out to a waterfall where they find a secret message that they have to decode with the cipher. That secret message sends them to Constitution, Arkansas, which is an old city that no longer exists, happens to be right where the Pig Trail, or the Pig Trail liquor store that everybody knows from around here is at. So it's out behind there. They go into a cave and they find a message in a bottle that was buried after they find a code on the wall. That bottle tells them that there's potentially a treasure that had to be moved to Charleston. So catch up to where we are now. The kids have come back to Charleston and they're actually at the local library and they're wanting to investigate some of the clues that was in this message they found in Constitution. So the story's about to take place. We are in the library. We have just gotten there and we're starting to do some research. So without further ado, here's more of the story. Chapter 18, The Arkansas Room. Hey y'all, look at this. It says right here, the Singleton Cemetery was established in the 1870s. That means it would have existed during the right time period. Carol let out excitedly as she pointed to a page in the old leather-bound book she had open on the table in front of her. The Arkansas room wasn't very large. It was about 10 foot by 10 foot and shaped in a perfect square. Books, newspaper reviewers, and pictures lined the walls. In the middle was a small white table with 4 chairs. Carol and Jake were on one side, with Will sitting on the opposite side. There was a stack of books on the table that Carol had asked Tricia, the librarian, to set aside. Both Will and Jake were a bit startled by this news, as they had both been bored to death for at least half an hour. They had been reading everything that was there with no answers to any of the clues they were looking for. Wait, so that's another point for Singleton Cemetery. So the key really could be there. Maybe we should head out there and take a, Jake said with a bit of a dream in his voice. Hey, hang on, remember you said we could tell our parents, Will interjected, trying to knock back the plan before Jake could even say it out loud. Yeah, I know, Jake replied a bit sheepishly, but we don't want to involve them any more than we have to. He looked up to Will, who still had concern on his face. Okay, fine, how about this? We just run out to the cemetery and see if there's anything suspicious, and if we find anything there, we will make sure and tell them. Sound good? Will's face slowly began to calm and Jake continued. I just really don't want to get them involved if we don't have to. Grandpa specifically asked us not to. Now, I don't want any of us to get hurt, and if it seems like it's going to get too serious or anything, we can tell them. But I think it's worth us just going out there to check it out. But it's up to you two. I will do what you want. Well, I'm with you, Jake. I don't see any danger in just going out there. Now, if we see these 2 crazy people that we saw before, I say we take off immediately. But other than that, I'm in, Carol replied. Will looked at Carol, then back to Jake. As long as you promise that if we even hear those 2 are nearby, we will leave. And he stuck out his hand for Jake to shake. Deal, Jake replied and firmly shook his best friend's hand. Okay, so we agree to go check out the cemetery, but what about the rest of the message, Carol said, to try to ease the tension that had been built in the room. I don't know, but I've been looking for anything to do with Jesse James or the James Younger gang, and I can't find any ties to Charleston. But the message seems pretty clear that it is here somewhere, Jake replied. Yeah, I couldn't find anything about a famous oak with the name Mason or really anything related to oak trees or someone named Mason. I even tried looking up the Freemasons, but the only tree I could find in relation to them was the acacia tree," Will added. "Okay, well, at least we have the cemetery clue. Let's pack up here and head out there," Jake said as he stood up and stretched. Carol and Will agreed, and they all began to put the books away and articles they had pulled out. "Hey, Carol, before you leave, here's an entry one of our other patrons found where they were doing research on Jesse James. Seems like he and the gang did come around these parts. Since you were researching it, I thought you might like to know," Tricia said as she stopped into the room and set down a red leather-bound book that looked similar to the others the boys had read through. "What?" Carol replied with excitement. "Oh, that was the one book that was missing from the Chronicles of Arkansas Years of the Civil War books," she continued as she took the book from Tricia. "Yeah, sorry, they were using it upstairs for their research, but check out the page I marked," Tricia added. "Left side of the page, I left a little tab for you," she said as she left the book on the table in front of Carol and headed out to the main library. Carol quickly opened the book to the page bookmarked, and her eyes darted to the left side of the page where the tab pointed. There! Her brain screamed as she began to read it out loud. April 28th, 4/2. Gang of robbers in Boone County take refuge in the house of Mr. Perry near Burlington. In shootout with posse, Parson New killed and John Thomason wounded. After robbers left, Mr. Perry was called out and shot to death. Some believe the robbers may be Cole Younger and Frank and Jesse James, gang! Wow, this confirms that at least people thought Jesse was in the area, which back in those days probably meant it was true, Carol said excitedly. Wow, Jake said as he reread the entry. Well, it doesn't say for sure though, so we still need to go out to the cemetery to confirm. But I do agree this absolutely makes me feel like we're on the right track. Will looked excited, yet nervous with the new information. Jake noticed his best friend feeling a bit worried and said, "Hey, we don't know anything for sure yet. At all. Let's just pack up here really quick," and he looked up at the clock on the wall. "Hey, it's happy hour at Sonic. How about I will buy us some Frito chili pie wraps, tots, and drinks before we head out?" Will smiled at the thought of the limited time Frito wraps from Sonic and a Route 44 cherry limeade light ice. Yum. Will relaxed and let out a smile. "Fine, you win, Jake," he said as he quickly began putting all the resources they had pulled out back. Jake smiled and said, "Yep, Sonic gets him every time," with a chuckle. They all were a bit hungry, and the thought of Sonic motivated them to all get picked up and then put back quickly. In 5 minutes, they were out the front door and headed next door to the Sonic. Chapter 19. A single family holds the key. "Hey, y'all, wait up," Carol said out of her window as she pulled up behind the boys who had beaten her to the cemetery by a good 30 seconds or so. Will had peeled out of the Sonic once they had their food, yelling, "Race you there!" to Carol, who replied, "No thanks," from her red 2016 Ford Prius. She didn't like racing and she was worried she might hurt her car. She loved her Prius. The two boys had already hopped out of Will's car and were standing next to the vehicle with their styrofoam Sonic cups in hand. "No worries, we were waiting for you," Jake hollered back to her. Once the car stopped, she hopped out and joined him. "I'm going to leave my drink here," Jake said as he reached back into the car and set his drink into the cup holder. "Oh, good point, me too," agreed Will. Once he had placed his cup back into the car and stood up, he said, "Wow, this place looks really, really old," as he looked around the cemetery. The three began making their way towards the line of graves. Singleton Cemetery is right off Highway 22 behind some local homes. There's a small dirt road that takes you back, and normally you have to park off to one side of the road at the end. However, Jake knows the owners of the property out front and asked if the kids could park in their driveway. He told them it was so their cars didn't get as muddy from the road, but he really just didn't want anyone seeing their cars there. In a small town, everyone knows everyone's car, and he didn't want anyone asking questions as to why they were there. The cemetery itself is about 1 acre in size and has over 100 graves. The tombstones stretch all the way from the 1870s up to 2010-ish. Other than the old graves, nothing really interesting here, Jake thinks to himself as he scans the area while they began walking in between the grave plots. "Wow, that grave is from 1950, Will let out. "This one's from 1897, Carol added. "Yeah, these are really old, that's for sure. But what were we looking for out here?" Jake added as they walked. "I don't really know," Carol replied as she scanned the space as well. "I was thinking something here would maybe stick out to us." "Hang on, y'all, I think I hear a car coming," Will said as the others paused to confirm the noise as well. Sure enough, they could see a vehicle coming down the dirt drive. "Hey, we should hide just in case, right?" Will added quickly, and the other two agreed. Jake pointed to a large gravestone that would hide them from anyone approaching from the road. The three were silent behind the gravestone as the vehicle became a little bit more clear. It was a 2015 black Chevy Suburban. It slowed as it neared the end of the drive and pulled off to one side. The doors opened and out popped Linda and Trent. The three treasure hunters looked at each other with wide eyes. Will was about to scream when Jake put his fingers to his lips and said, "Shh," in a small whisper. Will calmed a little and they hunkered down behind the old gray tombstones. Why are we even here, Trent?" Linda's voice snarled out. "Well, I figured Singleton Cemetery was made around 1870 and the clue said a single family. So I thought maybe it was around here somewhere," Trent replied a bit sheepishly. "Well, I guess that could make sense. But I really don't think anything is here. I mean, where could they have hidden something? It's pretty open around here," she said as she pointed around the place. "That's a fair point," Trent replied. "Well, wait, what about that compass thing the kids had?" He said as he reached into his pocket and pulled it out. "Didn't they say it was like a light or something?" He awkwardly held it up into the sun on the horizon and tried to make it work. However, he had no idea how to use it, so nothing happened. We should have made them tell us how it works," he said in frustration. "Put that stupid thing away, you look like a fool. I'm sure those brats were lying to us anyways. I feel like there is something we are missing," Linda thought to herself for a second and said, "Well, this place is pointless. Let's go back to town and check all the places Dr. Kellum gave land back in the day. That's where I think we should be looking into, not this stupid cemetery. The message clearly says Doc gave us the land to protect it. And we know he was the main doctor back then and he donated a lot of land. So yeah, I'm done here, Trent. Come on, let's go back to town." "Oh, okay, I'll be right there," replied Trent, who had begun walking further into the cemetery to check more headstones. He was just about to walk up to the one the kids were hiding behind, but turned around just before getting there. "Oh yeah, hurry up! I don't want to have to wait all night," Linda replied a bit snarky as she closed the door on the driver's side of the Suburban. "Okay, yeah, sorry," Trent replied as he began to run towards the car. Oof! Thud! Trent yelped out in pain as he tripped over an exposed root of a nearby oak tree. He stumbled and fell into the mud, and as he did, the compass fell out of his jacket pocket and landed in a small green bush to the left of him and to the right next to Carol. "Dang it," Trent said as he stood up and dusted himself off. "Now I got mud on me. Linda's gonna kill me." "Hurry up, slowpoke," Linda's voice echoed from the open driver's side window. "I'm coming," he replied a bit frantic. He quickly dusted himself off and headed towards the vehicle, not noticing the compass was no longer on his person. He hopped into the front passenger seat and Linda's tires tossed back the loose gravel as she aggressively exited the cemetery. Carol quickly ran over and grabbed the compass from the bush it fell in. "Look, y'all, the compass!" she said excitedly as she picked it up. "It fell out of his pocket when he tripped." The two boys scrambled out from behind their hiding spots and joined her by where Trent had dropped the compass. "What? That's awesome!" Jake replied. "Hey, wait, we're telling our parents now, right?" Will chimed in. "Jake, you said—" "I said if we found any evidence that proves that this is real or if we ran into those two again," Jake cut in. "But we really didn't run into them. We just saw them and we didn't find any actual evidence yet." He smiled a slight smile at Will and continued quickly. "And now we have the compass, so why don't we at least check around the cemetery a little bit better? Oh, and we could use the light from the compass to see if any of the graves are marked. What do you say, Will? I promise we will make it quick, and if we do actually find any hard evidence, we will make sure to tell our parents. I just want to try not to involve them any more than is needed," Jake said as he looked to his cousin for approval. After a few seconds of contemplation, Will shrugged his shoulders and said, Yeah, I mean, I guess. I also want to see if that compass shows anything." "Yes," Jake said elated. "Hey, Carol, any thoughts?" he said as he turned towards his other cousin to confirm. Carol was already midway into the first row of headstones and turned back to reply. "Oh, yeah, of course I'm in. I'm already halfway through checking out the first row." "Yes," Jake said as he pumped his fist into the air. He then continued to make his way over to Carol. "Wait, what are you checking it for?" "Yeah, how do you somehow already have a plan?" Will added with some confusion in his voice. "Well, yeah, I mean, I figured any tombstones from before 1882, which was the year Jesse James died, would be the ones we'd want to check. Any others would not have been here when he was alive, so how could he have used them?" The boys looked at their cousin in shock at how quickly she had come up with this brilliant yet simple plan. "Okay, so what next then?" Jake continued. "Put us to work. What should we do?" "Well, I think we should maybe start with the oldest tombstone in the place. I'm guessing it's going to be the best chance we have. So let's fan out and find one from before 1882. Then whoever finds it, you stand by it until someone finds one that's older. until we find the oldest. How does that sound? Will, do you want to start down that row? Jake, that one, and I'll take the first row. Sound good? Both boys nodded in agreement and began scanning the tombstones as they walked. After a few quiet seconds, Will's voice cut the air. Hey, this one's from 1880! Okay, so Jake, the year to beat's 1880, Carol replied. Will, stay there so we know which one it is until we find one that is older. A few more quiet seconds passed as they walked. Hey, this one's 1879, Carol said suddenly out of the silent searching. You're good to keep looking now, Will, she added. The two boys continued to search for a few more quiet seconds until both had reached the end of the road that they were on. We didn't find any older ones over here, Carol, Will hollered back to her as he took a quick survey of that part of the cemetery to see if there was anything that stuck out. Hey, hang on, what's that one in the back? It looks really old, Jake asked as he noticed an old ornate stone tombstone in the back corner of the lot. It stuck out to him because even though it was old and stone like the others, it was oddly shaped and large. It looks kind of large, or maybe like a triangle, and what looks like a big G in the middle of it, he added as he made his way towards it. When he got closer, he could now see a date on the very bottom that was quite faded but still legible. It says 1876, Jake announced to the others. Okay, well that seems to be the oldest by far, so let's go take a look before it gets too dark and use the compass out here. So let's go take a look before it gets too dark to use the compass out here, Carol replied as she and Will made their way to the tombstone Jake was referring to. Jake, I don't think that's a normal tombstone. I think that's a compass. And with that G there? Jake, this is the symbol for the Freemasons, Carol added excitedly. Okay, does that help us or something? Is there something cool about this Freemason group? Jake added as he stepped up to take a look. Yes, it means a lot. The Freemasons were known for their secrecy and are a part of pretty much any treasure hunting story in the U.S., Carol spouted out excitedly. Oh, those guys, Jake added, like in the National Treasure movies. Yes, Jake, like in those movies, Carol added, a bit frustrated with her two cousins' lack of enthusiasm on finding this. Okay, well, was Jesse James a part of this group or something? Will continued. Not that I'm aware of. I mean, everyone from history has been in some way connected to them or suspected to be involved, but I didn't see anything definitive in the research I did. I mean, that doesn't mean he wasn't, it just means maybe no one knew he was? The Masons have a lot of secrets. Julia Singleton Cormack, Will said as he read the name on the tombstone. What? Who? Carol asked as she was still lost in thought about the Freemasons being involved. That's the lady whose grave this is, Will added as he pointed to her name. Oh, yes, sorry, got lost in thought, Carol added as she refocused herself. Here, she said as she tossed the compass to Will. You know how this thing works. How about you shine some light on the tombstone and we'll see if there's any clues. On it, replied Will as he opened the compass, set it up, and then held it into the dying sunlight at just the right angle so the light shone directly into it and gleamed off of it onto the front of the tombstone. I don't see anything, said Jake a bit dejected as he checked the area the light hit. Me either, added Carol. Hey, Will, can you try to light up the back of the tombstone now? She continued as she made her way around the backside of it. Will obliged and moved the light so it illuminated the gray stone on the backside. What is that? Carol let out in excitement as she pointed to the back of the tombstone. On the ground at the base of the back was a small black arrow pointing down that only showed once the light from the compass hit it. There's an arrow again! Carol yelled out excitedly. Yes, I see it too, Jake added excited as well. So should we dig, I guess? He continued a bit awkwardly because it seemed a bit weird to be digging so close to a tombstone. Yeah, I guess so, Carol replied, seemingly a bit uncomfortable about it as well. Jake shrugged his shoulders and pulled his pocket knife out and began to dig at the surface dirt. He had gotten about 8 inches into the dirt when his knife blade clinked against something. He looked up at Carol and Will with a slight smile as soon as he heard the noise. He quickly began digging away more dirt with his hands, trying to uncover whatever it was his knife blade had found. After a few seconds and a flurry of dirt, "Here it is," Jake said as he pulled the object from the old earth it had been buried in. He held it up for the others to see. It was a glass bottle with a lid, just like the one they had found in the cave. The only difference that this bottle was much smaller and contained a smaller wrapped piece of leather. Jake dusted off the bottle and looked at the other two. Okay, yeah, it might be time to tell our parents, he mumbled out, still in shock that they actually found something. But let's at least see what's in this first. He continued as he pulled the wax seal and pop! The bottle opened and he poured out the leather roll into his hand. He quickly unfurled the old brown leather, excited to see what the next message was. As he finished unrolling it, there was no message at all, just a small black ornate metal key at the center of the roll. "Y'all, it's a literal key," he added in excitement. The other cousins had come closer to him to inspect all of this for themselves. "Holy cow, we found a key, y'all," Carol said with renewed excitement. "Yeah, but Jake, you said you should go ahead and tell our parents, right?" Will added as he began to calm and reality hit. "I would not do that if I were you," a voice came from out of nowhere. The kids jumped and hit the ground, trying to hide from whoever just said it. Whoa, "I'm very sorry, you don't need to hide from me." The voice came from behind a tree just a few feet away from where they stood. A man stepped out from behind the tree so he could be clearly seen. He looked to be in his early 50s, was medium height and had small wire frame glasses, a black mustache and a goatee with a bald head and a kind face. "I promise you, my name is Greg Gunderson, and I know about Jesse James and the treasure, and some other stuff. These people who are after it are very dangerous and will stop at nothing to get it. You will only be putting your parents in danger," he continued. "Hold up, strange dude. You stay right there," Will hollered back at him. "We don't want any trouble," Carol added. "I know, I promise you, I understand you and you are absolutely correct not to trust some guy in a graveyard. However, I know those two idiots who just left here are on their way back right now. I have a friend keeping an eye on them in town, and they said that they're headed back this way now." "What? Why in the world would we trust you?" Jake hollered back at the older-looking man. "You shouldn't, but you can see the car lights or the headlights from the car coming now, and if you don't get out of there, they will find you here. I just wanted to warn you. Those two are a part of a much bigger group, and they are ruthless individuals. So please just head to your car now," Greg said as he pointed the treasure hunters in that direction. "If you have more questions for me and want to talk in a more public place, you can meet me tomorrow morning at 925 Main Street in Charleston. I'm the custodian there. Now get out of here, I will distract them." As Greg finished his sentence, he began running towards the other side of the cemetery, where he started to loudly sing the chorus to Sweet Caroline, pretending he was drunk and singing to a lost loved one to help distract Linda and Trent. The three could see the lights of the Suburban about to turn onto the driveway for the cemetery, and they all looked at each other and agreed that whoever this Greg guy was, he seemed right about them needing to get out of there. They quickly ran out of the graveyard covered by the bushes and trees and made their way back to the car parked in the driveway. As they were quickly getting into their cars, they heard Linda's voice screech in the dying sunlight. "You lost it, Trent? You idiot!" Bewildered and shocked and a bit overwhelmed, the three quickly got into the red Malibu and headed back to Jake's house.